So, hello. I know I'm on a much lower resolution camera this time around. I don't enjoy the background of this room. And I'm not well shaved or groomed or well presented, and I know the lighting is horrible in here. So, with that all out of the way, I'm gonna make a video anyway and see where it leads. So, this isn't gonna be fully coherent on a logical level. Just FYI, well, what I mean by that is it's not gonna come around to some tied bow conclusion. Um, this is partly what I'm doing so far in these videos is processing out loud, and it helps me to do that in this particular atmosphere because I know that it might be watched by a few people, which motivates me to speak and to be like accountable in what I say, and you know, but also I have space to breathe and let my soul think, and um have a safe space to think out loud. So right now it's definitely as much for me as it is for the few people who might watch it, but um for those few people who might be following along, who might be in a similar space as me, or just need a calm presence to listen to, I invite you along. Um, I think this channel will eventually become something much more cultivated and something that it's hard to imagine what it might become right now, but I think it'll be special. Until then, it's kind of a self-processing place, and a space for, I guess, a few people to just come and you know lean into the whisper and listen. And I do have things to say, but it's difficult because they come from deep within my heart, and I'm in a transitional space right now. So it's kind of the word I want to use is like, is it liminal? A liminal space? I think that's the word. Like transitionary. It's kind of like the space in an ocean where mermaids supposedly live. Um, Obviously, mermaids aren't real, but if this is the surface of the ocean, the light only goes down so far. And then there's this liminal space where the light starts to fade. And you're in that transitional space between light and darkness in the ocean. And then below is just darkness, the depths. So that liminal space, that's where mermaids live, mythologically speaking. Most people in culture right now, it seems to me, are in this very fascinating process of going deeper into that liminal space. They've been riding the waves on the surface, living life in a particular way, through work, through school, through their schedules, through their social lives. That's probably most people, I assume. But COVID, along with other things, is causing souls to start to go deeper. meditation is one way that people do that. Getting out in nature, getting still with yourself, and you start to process things, you start to understand things, you start to get still, and it's kind of like one of those what are those things called? You shake them. Um, a snow globe, a snow globe. That's like the soul for a lot of people. Like they've been living life in such a way that the snow globe is shaken up, and so you know what happens when you shake a snow globe. There's a certain thing inside there, a little city or a Christmas tree or some sort of symbol or little structure or something. But there's also little pieces of snow, and you shake it up and it looks like it's snowing. What happens? Well, the picture inside gets fuzzy and unclear, right? So when you're living your life in this kind of like shaking type of way, you're constantly moving forward, never stopping to like smell the roses or stop and think, you know, that's like constantly shaking a snow globe. And then things start to get still. It's scary. It's scary because you're deepening, right? You don't know what's down there. Excuse me. You don't know what's down in the depths of your own soul, right? That's the scariest journey you can make, and but but you're making it, and as you do that, the snow starts to dissipate. The snow starts to fall to the ground, and the picture of what's inside becomes more clear. That seems to be most people, a lot of people. It seems to be the social current right now, as far as I can see. I don't have the whole picture. Um, I go off of what I see in public, what I see in um, online social domains, which I spend very little time on, but I have to keep a little bit of a pulse on to understand the process. Now, a lot of people are in very different spaces too, so, you know, there's a lot of speculation one can do. And this is a time where there is more isolation and more like rebuilding empathy is something all of us are kind of doing right now. And empathy is that connector that helps you to understand and know someone else's world, whether that be two people or the entire, like, three people, four people, an entire social group, an entire nation. I mean, you see how that like interwoven effect of as you start to build empathy again, you start to see more clearly. So right now we're still a little more in an isolated state, and because of that, we're learning. It's like, oh, this is what's going on in other people's worlds. And even if you're out and doing things all the time, like I do get very curious about people who are in more attuned social circles. Like those people seem healthy right now. People that are like they work every day and they have a rhythm and they have order. That seems to be like a really healthy thing right now. And it seems like the people who are thriving the most are people that just have like some small form of like ongoing order, rhythm, and structure, especially in social and work circles. I see a lot of healthy like spirits in those circles. But I'm still learning to relate. I'm still learning to socialize myself because here's the thing. I'm not coming from the surface down into that liminal transitional depth. I'm coming from way down deep. I've spent years in the depths, way down deeper than the light even goes. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 11. The medical arena didn't understand Crohn's, but they thought they did and they acted as if they did, and so they told me a story that they believed was true and they spoke it to me in a way that they believed was true with good intention, but it wasn't true. It wasn't even, there might have been a little sliver of truth in it, but it certainly led me down a false storyline that created dissonance within my soul. And so because of that, and I've always been a very high spirited person. You know, when I was 3 years old, I might have been three, I might have been 4 or 5, I don't know. But I had a babysitter who told my parents after babysitting me over and over again, seeing my energy, seeing my spirit, she said, that kid's going to either become the president of the United States or he's going to go to jail for the rest of his life. And so that's kind of, I'm very high spirited, I'm deeply sensitive. Um, I see a lot of things, and I've had to put understanding to what I see, and I've had to process and spend a lot of time alone. I had to quit social media years ago, like 15 years ago, because it was too much to handle, not just in a stimulating way, but my soul actually understood where social media was heading and what was going to take place with it. Even when smartphones first came out, I was in college and I was going home trying to tell my parents, this is going to change everything. Like, this is not good. I was scared. I was scared, but as a 18, 19, 20-year old in college, you don't know. I didn't know how to process it. I had these signals, these understandings, but I didn't know how to put it all together. Now I'm a different case too. I have a chronic illness, Crohn's disease, that is still being worked out, and we're starting to understand it better. Um, and I have anemia because of it, and I've dealt with addiction for years, and that's a whole thread I could go down and break down the understanding of addiction both from a personal level and from a cultural level, and how we all deal with addiction and how it shortens our ability to understand things and fragments our lives, and we all deal with that. We all deal with fragmentation of some kind, compartmentalization. Our souls are struggling to see things clearly, and social the social culture is a huge pull that kind of keeps us affirmed and in place, even if the culture itself is ebbing and flowing in certain flows and in certain directions that could bring like an entire group of people like far down a road for years. For years it could keep moving in a direction, but as long as the people within it stay affirmed within themselves, and that they can continue down paths for long times, and you can, for me, I can see where certain like precise little splits or breaches take place. That's like, oh, this is a trail that, like, if this happens or if that happens, like, culture's really headed in a certain direction, and I've struggled to know what to do with that. You feel like you feel this burden of understanding, like, oh my God, like, stuff is happening and I don't know what to do about it. And it's caused me to suppress, it's caused me to isolate, to hide, because I don't know what to do with it. So I try to bury it, and I've been too scared. And I've had, there's a lot of reasons for it. I mean, but I think there's, what I'm doing right now is exercising my voice, and I'm learning to get a little more courageous. This is a journey, this is a process. So, like, every time I post a video, it's another chapter in the story. And so, it's best to really read the whole book, so to speak, like one video at a time. But then again, it's like, you know, when I post something, it's like that's what's happening in me right now. That's what's taking place right now, and I hope it speaks to what's taking place like in this current time, in this season, in what we're all dealing with on a collective level to some degree. Now, I speak hesitantly because I'm still trying to figure. I'm wrestling with all that. I'm trying to figure that all out. But um, that's what I'm attempting to do here is to start to speak more, to pull out from in my soul what I've been suppressing for so long and try to understand and go a certain direction and see if it lands well. And um, so, yeah, there's a lot of things I see. I think about technology, I think about social circles, I think about the medical arena. Um, I think about isolation, addiction. I think about health. These are all things that affect me that I see that I find important. I think about the body, mind, and spirit and how they interplay and intercorrelate with each other. I think about spirit a lot on a bigger level too, just like the spirit of a room, you know, the spirit being like wind, like you can feel it coming, but you don't know what direction it's going in. I think about deeper matters. I think about a lot of spiritual things. And then I think about, I posted a video, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, and there was a few people that had time to watch it, I think. But then I took it down like 2 days later because it was heavy. And I believed everything I said in that video, but it was really vulnerable to post it. And after a couple of days, my soul started to like suffocate. I couldn't handle it. And so I had to take it down. And, but it had to do with Eros love. And, um, Eros is the more holistic term for the word erotic. It's the more integrated and um, wholesome sense of the word and how it integrates in our lives and in our culture. There's vitality that it brings, but then also there's it's fiery and it burns and it can burn, and so it has a strong pull on the heart, yet it's something that needs to be tread with caution. And so I just think that's really something that we need to figure out as a culture how to address, how to really like talk about. And but I also need to get a pulse on understanding where other people are coming from. So like if anyone watches this and wants to reach out to me or comment, please do because I need feedback. I need to know, how does this land? What are other people thinking? Like, does this stir a certain thought in you that you want to share? Because I think it's something that needs to be talked about. And it's hard to know how. It's hard to know how to approach it because everybody comes from very different spaces. So I have a lot of reverence for like what could be going through a single person's soul and finding the right words and inviting the right spirit to a conversation is tricky. It's tricky, but it's a line I would love to walk. um, to be able to connect with others and talk about real, deep, and true things. Eros love is one of those things. There's many other things too, like just what's stirring in people's hearts and um, we need to we need to go deeper with one another that we might discover truth, and we need to do it with care, that we might discover unity and compassion and gentleness and love. So, like truth and unity, and they come together and they weave together to form a bond. And we need that. That means being able to be like one with yourself, having agency in your life, like working out what needs to be done in your own soul. And it means having the courage to meet others and to connect. And one thing I think about when I think about that is needing like safe spaces, environments, like uh, like when you have a fire, if your soul is like a flame, you need a hearthstone to guard and protect that fire, because a fire, like if it gets too much fuel on it, it can become a wildfire and it can spread and it can make things burn. But a fire that has a container, like a hearthstone, that gives it space to grow, and it can warm people up, and it can draw people in when a fire has a proper hearthstone and a proper structure around it. So that's where like chaos and order really come together, and like structure and wonder can like coexist. Like when we come together in a space, that a container that gives order, structure, like belonging, like mission. It can be like a work environment, it could be like a camp, it could be like a Wednesday night Bible study, it could be like, you know, a container for people to come together, something that involves mission and purpose and daily living and fun and connecting, and has structure and order and rhythm to it, but also it provides space for depth. It provides space for growing roots, like in the soil, together as people. And so I'm keeping this vague because I want people to imagine in their own hearts what that might look like for you, like what crops up in your heart when you think of like safe spaces that you can connect in a wholesome way, but will also bring you like depth, truth, and vitality, to where you can open up and confess and share and show and open about like the desires of your heart, but not in a way that gets you burned, in a way that invites others in. And sometimes looking at like what we can do within the current structure we find ourselves in is the is like the best way to think about it. Like if you already have a certain social circle, you already have a certain job, you already have a certain rhythm, but sometimes it means like pulling out of those things and like stepping back so you can like reassess. But don't stay there too long, because I can tell you from experience that you can get lost if you don't have something to plug into. And um, so that's what I'm looking for now. I'm in the space where I've built depth, I've built within myself. I've had to let go of things. Like I got rid of my smartphone. Here's my phone. It's called a light phone. All it does is call and text message. I can't even receive photos on it. And it's one of the best things I've ever done. I've used it a lot. I've had to switch out of using the smartphone many times in the past, but I finally, this was a couple weeks before I just visited family. I took my smartphone, I smashed it into the ground. I was so convoluted and in angst because of the smartphone in my life, the way that it just messed with my life. And there's other things too that I'm working on that I can see a path forward. It's like, oh yeah, like I need to make real changes in my life. And I have Crohn's disease, so that's part of it. I have to stay deeply attuned, like just to live, just to breathe and survive. Like I've got to be on my A game, and I'm not. So I'm getting there. I'm working my way there. So it's taking time, but anyway, so again, like I knew this would happen. I get kind of caught up in talking about different things, and it's hard to bring it all into focus. But I'm talking about structure, talking about a container, and I just hope it stirs things up in you, whoever you are, if you're watching or listening. Um, I hope it causes you to think, and I hope it helps my heart. I hope it helps to put me at ease and to help me to process, to understand better. And I hope to hear from somebody and hear what you think. And so I guess I'll try to sum it up. I'm kind of observing the heart, my heart, others' hearts as individuals. I'm observing the social culture at large. I'm observing kind of what's taken place in my own life over the past 23 years, really. I mean, I was diagnosed with Crohn's when I was 11, and I'm 34 now. So, and I'm observing like what I think might be going on in culture today. But again, I feel like I'm throwing darts at the dartboard a little bit because I'm still getting reattuned with what's going on. And I presented a couple kind of visions to think about, like that liminal in between space where mermaids live. That's really something to simmer on, living in that liminal space where, you can still come up to the surface to catch a breath and breathe, but diving back down deep to find something more true and more rich and more real. That can become a real process in life. Like that's a real thing to grab onto the depths of the sea in terms of what's going on in here. That's a space you can go to and actually inhabit. And so I'm encouraging unity, I'm encouraging bond, I'm encouraging truth as best as I know how right now. I'm encouraging really reconciliation with one's self and with the people around us. And I'm cautioning a little bit too, like, because if we don't think about these things and if we don't work through what it means to be human right now in this point in history, like, that would be a little scary, I think, if we didn't stop and really think and get deep. I think we're in a transitional space right now, in a transitional time period. And I think it's actually pretty important that we treat it with care and we treat it with, some sense of like urgency. And people are doing that. Like, people are doing that, I think. But yeah, it's important. It's important to work through these things. And um, so, yeah, gave a couple visions. The other one was the comparing the glass. What do you call it? I can't think of it again. The shaking thing. Snow globe. Comparing the snow globe to the soul and the way that um, when we slow down, we can start to see things more clearly as the snow settles. Um, the hearthstone and the fire. That's a comparison to like creating structure around our lives, around ourselves, around our souls, um, that involves us, but also other people too, and how we can do that. Um, and, we're part of something bigger than ourselves. That's the last thing I would like to say. As we walk forward open palmed and we move forth into this new uncertain season that we're walking into, as we continue to walk, there's something bigger at hand than you and me and what we're doing. So that's like both like the greatest confidence and the biggest mystery at the same time. Like you're walking forth into something bigger than you. You're playing a chapter in a story that is larger than you. And so you don't have to have it all figured out. But at the same time, there's something really deep to grab hold of, something really true to seek after. So you can move forward with uncertainty. You can walk a new path. You can enter into a new season. You can put yourself in new places and say, okay, let's see what happens. Because as we move forth and as we take the, I'll give you one more image here. As we take the bow, I think, is the name of the front of a boat. Is that right? The bow? Gosh, I have to check. I literally have to check real quick. Hold on. Bow. The forward part of the hull of a ship or bow. The bow, right? Not the bow, but the bow. Okay. Back to the image. So as you point your boat out of the harbor and you point the bow into the storm, into the sea. There might be a storm, right? It might be a storm that you're pointing your boat out into, and that's okay. That's the chaos, that's the uncertainty. Point your boat into the storm and start moving the ship. That momentum. And that might be into something. I'm not talking about busyness. I'm not talking about like muscle memory, returning to old habits, you know. And this word might not be for everybody at this particular moment, you know. So I just want to preface that like you know, there's seasons for everything. So some seasons work, you know, it's about getting more quiet. Some seasons it's about moving. Some seasons it's about, you know, it's about death. Some seasons it's about life. That's a big one, I guess. But some seasons are, you know, or winter, summer, right? So like there's different seasons of life we go through. And so, but as we point the bow of our ship, the bow of our ship out into the storm, the wind will guide our sails. So I guess that's it for now. See you next time.